All right, here we go. Live in 5, 4, 3. All right, and welcome everybody here to today's Fixed Ops Marketing Roundtable discussion panel. This is a brand new series that we launched just last month with Fixed Ops Digital and Revolution Parts, basically a virtual roundtable panel discussion that we'll be doing pretty much on the last month of the last Tuesday of every month. So I'm Ryan Girardi. Today is Tuesday, October 29th, I should say. And in a moment, I'm going to turn off my screen share. We've got a great panel lined up today, going to look, first part of today's discussion is going to be on automotive parts obsolescence and how to turn that into revenue. And then the second segment of today's discussion will be on using YouTube to service your marketing campaigns. If you're watching this on the recording or listening to the podcast, which would be the majority of folks, know that we do this live as a live webinar that is also streamed live onto our YouTube channel. And towards the end, I'll explain how to get involved with the live discussion panels, because there's some benefits to being here on the live discussion panel, even just as an attendee, where you can participate like a conventional webinar, participate in the Q&A and whatnot. So on my screen here, you can see the announcement about today's session, which I pretty much just went through. So what we have lined up here, I'm going to do just a real quick round of introductions. We have Owen Moon, co-founder and CEO of Fixed Ops Digital. We have Karl Krug, head of strategic partnerships at Revolution Parts. And then dialing in from St. Augustine, Florida, we welcome back Ed Roberts, Fixed Ops Director at Bozard Ford Lincoln, and Dave Rozek, who you might not have seen here in a while. It's been a few months, but Dave joins us from Bill Jacobs Auto Group in the Chicago area. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
So what I'd like to do is kick things off. I'm going to turn to Karl. And Karl, while you're talking, I'll share my screen briefly for a moment and go through. Revolution Parts just came out with a new report on parts obsolescence. So if you could, maybe we can assume everybody knows what parts obsolescence is, but let's start from the very beginning. What is parts obsolescence and why is it an issue for dealers?
Well, parts obsolescence is parts that were purchased that are no longer in high demand in the dealership. And so they're sitting on your shelf collecting dust. And it's a problem because it ties up inventory dollars that you could be spending on parts that would move faster. And it just ties up capital inside of the dealership and takes up shelf space.
And what kind of problem does this cause for dealers from a profitability standpoint?
Well, capital that's tied up is money that you can't spend doing other things, for one thing. So you've got all this extra money tied up in your inventory. The other thing is that obsolescence, when it sits for a while, ends up becoming devalued. And so people sell it for pennies on the dollar. So not only do you have capital tied up, but in order to free up that capital, you have to sell your inventory at a loss. So it affects the gross profit of the dealership and more specifically affects the gross profit of the parts department.
So traditionally, and Ed, as your Fixed Ops Director, so, maybe you could give us some color on this and how does obsolescence affect your dealership?
Well, like Karl stated there, it's assets that's tied up. Here we call it frozen assets because it's whether it's depreciating or appreciating, and most of the time it's depreciating. It's still assets you can't do anything with. There's several ways that leads to it, whether a customer didn't come back for an SOP part or overestimated what the demand of something's going to be. So when something ages, we start looking at it about the 7-month mark. Once it starts aging past that 7 months, we start looking at it to find a way to get rid of it. But at the 12-month mark, we're looking to dump it at pennies on the dollar, exactly like Karl said.
So you'll hold on to it for up to 12 months.
Yes.
And Dave,
Not ideally, hold on to 12 months, but I'm going to try to find a way to sell it, because if I can sell it, I'm going to make something off of it. If I'm giving it away, I'm just recovering whatever cost I can recover.
What do you do about it now? I mean, you say it sits there for 12 months, but are you actively trying to move the parts, or is it impossible?
Well, some of it's mistakes. So mistakes, there's not a huge demand for it. Where home part was ordered, we'll go out on OE connection and say we'll sell it 50% back at cost or 40% back at cost, depending on how long we've had it. Don't really. I'm looking to learn something here as far as the YouTube marketing as well, because see if there's an opportunity for us to pick up something.
And like I said, guys, I'm just hitting the YouTube feed. I have a comment chiming in from one listener, Mike Phillips, just defining that obsolescence is a state of being which occurs when an object, service, or practice is no longer wanted, even though it may still be in good working order. Karl, let's go back to you real quick. What are some factors that lead to it? I think Ed just mentioned one, which is someone orders a part and never comes and picks it up. Is that probably the most common?
That's the most common, but also, which is very common, is the inventory practices aren't adjusted fast enough for a demand for a particular part to go away. So, for example, there's a vehicle that's getting older. Your inventory system tells you to stock the part. By the time you stock the part, that particular vehicle moves into the aftermarket, isn't coming to the dealer as much anymore, and now you're stuck with those components because you didn't adjust fast enough to the changing demand of the marketplace. There's special order parts, and as Ed said, there's mistakes, parts that were ordered that weren't intended to be ordered. Then the return policy for the automaker doesn't allow you to return that particular component because it's below their threshold, or you didn't notice that it was incorrect at the time of purchasing, or it was something that a customer took and ordered and returned, and it wasn't returned quickly enough for you to identify that part was something you weren't going to be able to sell, and then it transitions into obsolescence.
One of the things that we've done to help with some of that is when a customer doesn't come back for a part that they've ordered, we'll offer to bring it to them or go install it at their place of business or their home as well. So that's helped with that. And that's where I said, when it gets to that 7-month mark, we start looking at all avenues we can look at.
I'd be curious on what type of volume we're looking at, Ed, or even Dave. I mean, Dave, you keep a good pulse on the fixed ops side of things. How are you affected by this at Bill Jacobs?
Our biggest problem with obsolescence parts isn't normally the one-off thing with a customer orders something. I mean, that does happen, but that's not normal. Our issue, our biggest issue is like stocking stuff for our boutique. It's items of, hey, I need to have X amount of merchandise in stock. So it's not your regular parts that I usually have a problem with. It's the stuff that the OEM kind of makes us have. And then sometimes we get overzealous because we sell a couple t-shirts or hats or something or bags. And then we stock a bunch of these and then they change the design. Next thing you know, we have to take X amount of product and nobody wants it. We put the stuff on Amazon. We put the stuff on eBay. We mark it down 50%. We try to give it away. And then it ultimately ends up to where I'm just going to Goodwill going, here you go, on that type of merchandise. So I don't really have as big of an issue on, somebody ordered a power steering pump or something like that. That's usually not my biggest problem. We run pretty thin, there, but not to say that, we couldn't utilize YouTube marketing. We could utilize Revolution Auto Parts website. I mean, I've had Revolution Parts websites at the previous group I was at with the Napleton group, and it cut our obsolescence by 50%. But they have a different way of stocking things there. Here, usually they order something and you pay for it. So if you don't come and pick up your part, it's paid for sitting on the shelf. So we have a little different philosophy here, but we're not the typical, I don't think, parts department when it comes to ordering BMW product. If you order a BMW product or a Land Rover, you're usually paying for it up front.
Yeah, I think with online parts, actually doing the e-commerce aspect where people are buying it on order, yeah, it's less of an issue. Now they could always return it to you.
Yeah, and that's a problem. And like you said, if you get something and you got to return it, and it's been a couple months, and then you reach the part where it's past returning it back to stock. So that does become a big problem with us on that, especially on our Volkswagen side.
Karl?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things about obsolescence. One of them is, from a standard, you're generally looking at anywhere from 0.5% to 3 or 4% obsolescence, depending upon the dealership and depending upon how aggressive the dealership is in stocking and how controlled the dealership is in what they stock. That you can over-manage obsolescence to a certain extent. So if you have a dealership where everything's prepaid for, that the obsolescence is less of an issue. But if you have a mass market dealership where you're speculating as far as what people are going to come in and buy, you can actually over manage your obsolescence and manage yourself out of a whole bunch of sales. Mm-hmm. So a good mass market dealership should be at about 1.5% to 2% typically. A luxury brand should be much smaller. And if you're much over 2%, you need to work on managing your inventory or find an outlet for your obsolescence so that it's not profitability.
The percentage you're giving, is that based off of value, dollar value?
Yeah, dollar value.
Okay.
So annual purchases. 0.5% to really 2.5% of annual purchases should be about your obsolescence per year, or typical for obsolescence for a year.
Now, when Dave was talking, he did mention eBay and Amazon. I know that's brought up in the report by Revolution Parts. Maybe we could spend just a couple minutes here talking about the differences between the roles that eBay Motors would play versus Amazon. Karl, maybe you could start off with some of those distinctions.
Well, eBay is a great venue for selling parts to people who need older parts. So if you're selling in that transition window, where you were stocking it and selling a bunch of it a couple of years ago, and now you're stuck with it because nobody wants it, eBay is a great way of getting those products out onto the marketplace and moved, because the eBay buyers are more of your do-it-yourself buyers and are a lot of shop buyers who are looking to find hard to find parts over the internet. So that's a great source for eBay. Amazon is very similar, but Amazon tends to have a little bit more of a newer customer base. So eBay is actually really a wonderful venue for getting rid of your obsolescence. And Amazon is a great way of just putting inventory out there and moving it, which also picks up your obsolescence as well.
Mike Phillips, who's tuned in on YouTube, chimed in, and I like this. He says they actually have a rep who, sorry, let me just change my screen here. They actually have a rep whose job is to call people with orders and remind them, and even preset appointments for them to come and pick up their parts.
That's exactly what we do. And then as a last resort, we'll go to them.
You'll bring it out to them.
Yes.
What about the idea of auctioning them off? Mike brought this up about doing even a live auction to get what you can through an auction. Is that, Ed, Dave, you ever try something like that?
I have not.
I haven't done that from a dealership side. I've done that as a vendor side, where I've approached General Motors and Ford and different companies where I've bought the OEM's obsolescence parts to large scales, where I've given them pennies on the dollar to take their stuff, put it in a warehouse, and then what I actually ended up doing is reselling it on eBay. We came up with a website called GM Surplus Auto Parts, and we ran it with the Rydell Automotive Group out of Iowa. So we bought a bunch of General Motors parts for pennies on the dollars, turned around, and then what we did is we actually offered, we would send a spreadsheet to each regional office of LKQ. So we just sent them over a spreadsheet, added on our markup, sent it to them, and had each region office bid on it. So LKQ will actually bid on stuff like that if you have a large quantity, but the small onesie twosie stuff, I'm just better off trying to liquidate it on eBay or trying to find somebody who'll take it. Most of the time, though, we have stuff that it's been paid for and we wrote it off and it's been sitting in my part shelf for 2-3 years. But like I said, we don't have a lot of that stuff. We've cleaned it out over the years. We just, on the higher end cars, we just developed a policy to, have people pay for it in full. The difficulty is when people, like you said earlier, when people return it. I did want to notate, though, on the Amazon side is that we're involved with Amazon through the OEM. And there is a difference, though. When you're doing it through the OEM account, the OEM is managing it for your region. So it's like one big BMW Amazon account. And then if it sells in a certain region and somebody else has it at another store, that BMW dealership fulfills the order. We don't. We just would fulfill it in our area. So it's different than like having my own Amazon account and connecting it with Revolution Auto Parts. At the Napleton Group, it was done a little bit differently. We had our own Amazon account, we had our own eBay reps, and we worked with Revolution Auto Parts to liquidate those parts. And we did a fairly successful job that way. They were found better from an SEO standpoint organically because they had different parts numbers that were not only the dealership's parts numbers, but kind of the salvage yard's parts numbers. So they are on a different system. So I think that Revolution Parts has a better SEO impact for moving obsolescent parts that way, but I could be wrong.
Hey, Ryan, this is Owen. Just one thing I wanted to kind of just mention here is that obviously we're kind of talking a lot about a reactionary, situation, and you're always going to have that. I mean, we had it on the sales side we still have it on the sales side where vehicles are there too long and now the dealership has to react to get rid of them. It's no different with parts. I think one of the things that we're trying to do from Fixed Ops Digital is create an environment where we're getting that information out there. I think Dave mentioned it earlier, that certain brands just from the nature are going to be more parts driven, like BMW, Land Rover, things like that. I mean, accessories, you're talking, FCA, you're talking people wanting to, dress up their Wranglers and their Ram trucks and things like that. So I think what we're trying to do from a standpoint is maybe be a little more on the front end where we're trying to build content, provide information, show consumers kind of a why service, message or kind of from the fix op side of what they can expect when they do buy parts and sort of that process. And maybe if we can bring them along from a content strategy and from an education standpoint, maybe we have less of the fallout at the backside. But ultimately, you have to have a process in place and a strategy in place. And I think there's been some great points. We're just trying from a marketing standpoint to maybe be more on the front end to hopefully help some of that education that maybe it won't become as much of a factor at the dealership level when you talk about the rise in this type of a situation. So,
hey, and
I'm with you. That makes sense. And before we segue into segment B, I want to just bow tie this real quick. I'll do a quick transition. Karl, I cut you off, so go ahead. Last word for you on obsolescence.
Yeah. So, Owen, I think that's a great point in being proactive about it. And that's one of the things is that to sell the part, you have to have the part. And so really the value of our platform with Revolution Parts is that you can get your product out there on multiple platforms, which creates some security in stocking the part. So just building off of what Dave said, our solution allows you to create an e-store, a parts tab store, so it runs off of your central website and access to eBay and Amazon. So it allows you to move your obsolescence out the door before it becomes obsolescence. So we have a multi-channel approach, and also to Dave's point, it's your store. So if it's out on eBay and a customer sees it, you're going to be the one that's selling it. And the same is true of Amazon as well. If you're selling through Amazon on our store, they're going to buy it from you because they're going to see your product on Amazon and eBay. Okay.
So folks, we're going to transition into the second part of our conversation on YouTube marketing. And just as a reminder, if you're on autoconverse.com, I'm sharing my screen here about today's announcement about today's panel. And in here is a link to the Revolution Parts obsolescence guide. So you can just follow that link. It'll bring you over to here and you can get the guide on your own. You're tuned in here to our fixed ops marketing for auto retail. This is a roundtable panel discussion we launched last month, doing a conversation like this pretty much about once a month by default, scheduled for the last Tuesday of each month. And the way it works is if you go to autoconversion.net, look under webcast auto retail, and you'll see fixed ops marketing. That'll bring you here. And you can get yourself registered. And what that'll do is give you access to participate here on the Zoom, either as a panelist with audio and video or as an attendee, like a conventional webinar. We stream this live on YouTube. It's recorded, and then it's featured on the AutoConverse podcast. Once we end the live stream, the link to the video becomes unlisted. So unless you have a link to the video, you won't be able to access the recording. The only way to get the recording is if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. And of course, if you're registered, you'll receive an invite to join us in our Slack network. And we put a link to the recording in there. And that'll also give you access to all the historical, all the previous versions as well. Oh, and let's transition over here. You guys did a really nice piece, I think well thought out, well researched on using YouTube to service your fixed ops marketing campaigns. You just kind of alluded to that on doing something to be proactive to kind of combat obsolescence. But tell us, if you could, why should dealers be using YouTube specifically for marketing on fixed ops?
Well, I think it comes down to, just to kind of give a little backstory on this, we know that essentially people learn three ways, right? Some are audio, some are visual, and some are learned by doing. About 95% are audio and visual. So when you can bring in audio and a well-written piece of content into your marketing, you kind of cover all of those learning behaviors. And so that's kind of the first thing, is why video, right? Why should you have video on content that you're pushing out there, specifically for different services that you offer, alignment service, oil change, batteries, things like that. But more specifically is why bring in YouTube? Because YouTube was sort of a dead media. There was a lot of discussion on, should you put the video directly embedded into your website, or should you use a third-party application like YouTube? And when Google bought YouTube years ago, it changed everything for YouTube, because now Google is actually indexing YouTube videos. They're showing up at the top of searches. So it's just another great way to sort of bring your message into that environment. But ultimately, however they end up getting to a piece of content or something on your website that's fixed ops driven, when you have a YouTube video behind it, Google is going to give you additional authority because you're bringing in that video, and now you're allowing that customer again to learn in those two ways that most consumers like to absorb that information. And I'm kind of both. I'm actually more video today, or more audio, where I like to listen to podcasts. I like to listen to books on tape, or books, not books on tape anymore, but like books audio wise, where some people just like to read, and read and absorb the content through reading and rereading the information, through books and things like that. So a lot of people are different, and I think what you're doing when you do both is you're sort of appealing to both of those consumers. Because at the end of the day, if you're providing enough information to them, the last thing you want to do is have them leaving, not feeling like they got the information they're looking for. So that's kind of why we talk about it. Some of our clients do a really good job of providing us with good YouTube content that we can incorporate into our marketing strategies. Some are really far behind the times, and we're trying to kind of move those customers along. But that's ultimately why we wrote the piece, and just trying to provide more information and more education out there for dealers as they are starting to take a more proactive role in their fixed ops marketing.
Dave, I know you leverage YouTube a lot for retargeting and getting ads into YouTube. Are you utilizing YouTube in any way at the dealership, the way Owen describes, to actually produce content?
In marketing, we have 22 different types of video formats and templates that we utilize. Most of them are for variable ops. Not all of them are for fixed ops. What we find with a lot of our fixed apps video, from a branding message, we kind of push out a white glove service and how we'll pick up your car and drop it off for you type of thing. And we push that in YouTube. We push that on YouTube, especially into markets that are conquest areas. We're in Naperville. We have a market not far from us that there's no BMW dealer, so it's kind of open. So we kind of conquest that area for YouTube, pushing our service and how many loaner cars we have and how that, it's easy to buy from us online, etc. From a service standpoint, though, we do a lot of frequently asked questions videos. Because we're an M performance center, we'll do little video snippets of how to use things. We'll tell people how to use their keyless entry. We'll give people tips on what they should do to winterize their car. We'll say, you should, have your tires checked. You should store this in your car, because of snow. You should check your battery. You should do all these things. And we talk about that on YouTube. We talk about that on Facebook. You see, we do it on YouTube, but we also do everything that we do on YouTube, we do on Facebook. Everything that we put there, we put on Google My Business as well. So we have kind of a 3-part video strategy, in addition to sometimes putting that on our blogs and sometimes putting it on our website. So if I'm going to talk about a safety issue on a car, and we're going to talk about how to put a child seat in, for example, which is a little bit dated of what we used to do, but a couple of years ago we did that, but we took that same video and you could watch that same video with content on my YouTube channel. And we have a separate YouTube channel for that. So we have Bill Jacobs BMW, and then we have Bill Jacobs Tech Talk. And every one of our stores has multiple YouTube channels. And depending upon the topic, we may have a BMW genius out there talking to you about how to install the child seat or how to use your remote, or on Land Rover, how to use the band to start your car and unlock your car without your key. So, we have all these videos, but they're all based on frequently asked questions. They're questions that people have emailed us and asked us about on the website. And then what we do is we take that content, we turn it into a video, and we build this library for our geniuses. We build this library for our sales staff, as well as our BDC staff, so they can reference this videos and they can share it with a customer going, hey, this is how you set that up. Not all that is fixed ops, but everything feeds into each other. So if you remember that if you do it on YouTube, that's great. You post it on Facebook, then post it on Google My Business, upload your video there. And then whatever the video is that you're uploading people and getting content on Google, if you have a tire special, take your tire special coupon and put it on your Google My Business page. Put that same coupon on your Facebook page so that it's right after those video engagements, either in the same ad or after it, and then you boost it. Google My Business is free. You don't have to boost those, but it helps. The Facebook ones, you spend $25 and boost it for a few days and just boost whatever your fixed apps offer is or your obsolete part. That's kind of where we have our most success at, is that we get people involved with our videos weekly. And then after that, as they're watching our feeds, there's always an offer. And you have to rotate your offers. One could be, hey, we're doing some goodwill this week. We're raising, we're on a food drive for this particular thing. Then right after that, it's a video that's telling you about this and that about your vehicle. And then we have an offer again, and it's a fixed ops offer. So every week, every Friday, actually, one of the people that work with me in marketing, Hannah, she's sitting next to me. she has this daily habit where she prints off whatever the offer is, and she brings it to my Volkswagen store, and she gives it to each service writer, and they have a little display there with their fixed ops offer. But that's the same offer that you're going to see on my Google My Business, on Facebook, and then we may do a video about it. We may have a buy three, get a tire for $1 offer, but we're going to do a YouTube video about that, and we're going to put the offer. So it's not just do a video. You got to do something to support that and follow it up with. So sorry to ramble, but I figured I'd share that input with you as how we market fixed ops here a little differently.
Thank you, Dave. And Ed, how about you? Are you as diligent with your hooks and calls to action in your marketing? Do you even utilize YouTube, for the service department?
We use YouTube a ton for variable, but not as much for fixed. And I'm a little bit different than Dave on that. And it just really depends on how you go to market. We don't have a call to action in any of our fixed stuff. It's all top of mind stuff. So this month I sent out something to 10 ways how to carve a pumpkin. Next month it's how to cook a turkey. So just very top of mind stuff. But on the sell side, it's all about the offers. It's what's out there, whether it's 0%, whether there's a trade incentive or whatever else. So it varies on department to department, but we don't do anything with parts on YouTube. So there is some opportunity there. I wrote down some notes from both Dave and Owen on how we could pick up some of that. And there's opportunity for us.
Yeah, and to just pick up off of what Dave said, as you put your YouTube and your other videos out there, if you have an e-store, then you should plug those parts through the e-store. So for example, if you're putting out a video on to install a particular accessory or how to change your oil or something simple like that, you should connect it into your e-store so that your customers can then go online and buy the parts from you.
Yeah, if there's even on the B2B side, you guys, I have found that information. I'm a big believer in offering a variety of information. As a car dealer, you want to keep it relevant to your buyer, to your customer, knowing that they might not need something now, but they definitely will, in a few months, especially when it comes to things like service and parts. So Ed, like to your example, producing content that is more seasonal or even local community driven is a good way to stay in front. But I do think you got to add the hook in there. That's where something like an online store can be so useful, because you can link them. That can be the call to action. You can, as Dave said, put those special offers in there, those coupons and incentives to get those conversions when you need them. Oh, and it looks like you want to chime in.
Yeah, all I was going to say is great points. Dave, obviously you're doing a lot of really good stuff. You're a lot more advanced than 90% of the dealers I'm talking to. The only thing I saw that I heard or didn't hear was utilizing your website. And I think that's we've become really accustomed to everything that we drive to the website is sales, sales, sales. And so what we're trying to do from a marketing standpoint and with our clients is really change the game, that now some of that real estate that we have is for the service, parts, tires, collision, that type of thing. And so when we incorporate some of these videos, those videos you're talking about, these are what we're asking our dealers to provide for us, so we can drive that information into a specific piece of content that's on the website. There's a reason why when you go to like the news site, that you'll hear the clip on the particular story, and then the exact story is transcribed onto the page from what you're hearing. Because again, some people like to use the visual and some people like to use audio. So we're just trying to provide a better user experience for the customers, and the end user is really the most important thing. So definitely you're on the right track, Dave. You're doing good stuff, obviously. Ed, I'd love to talk to you about, maybe some ways that you can, sort of take your vision of kind of learning stuff and things that are going on and stuff like that, and sort of tie that together with offers and content and education, because there's a way to do it that's tastefully, that's not just, always trying to push another offer down a customer's throat, which we find doesn't necessarily resonate with a service customer specifically. So.
Exactly. I don't want to throw out different programs. I'm just not a discount driven store, so I don't want to always have a coupon out there for somebody to chase.
Yeah, we believe in full retail. Why not? Because at the end of the day, you're a lot of times cheaper than the independents anyways, but nobody knows it because we're too busy trying to do $5 off an oil change, and no one knows what that means, right? So I like that as well. So
do you guys do like a landing page on the dealer's website? So you do a video and then you'd build like a landing page so that it found SEO or organically? Is that what?
Yes, exactly. Yep, exactly. And we build multiple pages. Every month we're building new pages, and we're working with the fixed ops director specifically to come up with those strategies that they want. So then you just tie in your YouTube content into it, and now you've got kind of that 1-2 punch. So yeah, that's definitely what our focus is for our dealers. So
awesome. That's good stuff.
Well, gentlemen, good stuff. We could probably talk for 2-3 hours on all this, but no need to. I think we got the basic ideas out. And what's the key here, folks, that are tuned in, is doing these things, right? It's reaching out to Ed and Owen, Karl and Dave, and getting these questions out there, trying things out. You can't try it all. You cannot do it all. You got to pick 1 or 2 things and knock those out of the park. Get them humming for you. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. Just having a presence on YouTube can be a full-time job. So be patient and try out these ideas. Owen Moon from Fixed Ops Digital. Thank you, Owen, for contributing to today's panel.
yeah, great discussion. Thanks for having me again.
And Karl from Revolution Parts, you and your team, thank you as well for the parts obsolescence guide. And folks, I'm going to just share my screen one last time here. If you are subscribed to autoconverse.com, what'll happen is you can specify daily, monthly, or weekly. And I say daily, just meaning whenever we publish, you'll get emailed. It's 2 or 3 times a week tops. But what'll happen is you'll see what's coming up. You'll see who we have lined up, what the topics are, and there's a link in there to the live stream that's going to occur. So even if you can't watch live, you can always tune in with that link at another time. Again, it's recorded and then featured onto the AutoConverse podcast. So if this is great podcast material, you can just have it running in the background and really learn a lot. If you want to participate in any way in the Fixed Ops Marketing panel series, look over at autoconversion.net, and it's linked to from the article I sent, and just get yourself registered. That'll send you an invite into our Slack group, and you'll have asynchronous access to everybody you see here and be able to collaborate with other peers in the space. And that's mentioned on our community page. If you're not already in our LinkedIn group, be sure you are in our LinkedIn group. It is unlisted, so you have to link to it and then just knock, and I'll approve that. And in case you have an appetite for more, check out our programming calendar, and you can see dates and times of everything we have lined up throughout the month related to our tech shows, our leadership show, and our automotive roundtable panel discussions. So with that said, gentlemen, thank you all again very much. We're going to go ahead and take this offline, except I lost my control panel. There it is. I found it. It all disappeared. And thanks, Mike Phillips, and for those that tuned in live as well. We're going to go ahead and shut this down. Everyone have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Everyone.
See you guys.
That's right.